What does 4x3 even mean, Nick? What does it even mean?
I don't know. It was in an IMAX thing or something strange like that. I know Mac and Goo's in 4B3 form now too, so I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know what just happened, to be quite honest with you.
There is a podcast that comes to the airwaves from the sea, Nick. It comes in the winter when the people are hungry for content. They bring hot takes. It arrives on the King's Tide. That was last night. And welcome back to another edition of the Change My Mind podcast, part of the hashtag Dork Shared Gooniverse, along with Geeks Worldwide Radio and Midnight.fm. I am Wesley Sykes. Through the other side of the ether is the Steppenwolf to my mother box, Mr. Nick Fryer.
Wow, you know what? Just a few days ago, that would have been a huge insult now, Wes. And Steppenwolf, we'll talk about it more in detail, but I feel like his stock has risen immensely in the past, not even a couple weeks. It's been a few days.
Feels like you're still searching for me, Nick. You're still searching for me.
This is true. Well, no, I found you, and just like Steppenwolf, I found you. I just failed, it's pretty typical. It's on brand, I'd say.
Oh no, don't say that. But it may be fitting. I think you segued very nicely. Of course, we're going to be talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League with a very special guest, an insider, if you will. I might, but Nick. Speaking of your past failures, if you could have a Snyder Cut redo in your everyday life, is there a moment that stands out?
Well, yeah, there's definitely a moment that stands out. I would say the moment that I felt a pop in my elbow when I was, a junior going into senior year playing summer ball. I probably would have gone back and not relieved the day before that when I knew I was going to start, or it was like 2 days before. Not nearly enough rest. And then my elbow was like a pain in the ass from there on out. I just had to monitor it, so much work, massages, and not like the fun type at all.
I don't think I would go to college.
Really?
Yeah, I would. Because if I could go back and like do things, of course, the Snyder Cut, right? We're picking and choosing what we change from our history. So some things could stay in place, and I would not probably go to college and be strapped to the student loan debt. And I could probably still be where I'm at right now. And do what I want to do. You know, I think, if I could go do it all over again, a little Snyder Cut redux, cut up some things.
Yeah.
Maybe do some things in slow motion. Maybe life doesn't go as fast.
Wow. Well, yeah. Okay. Then if you got the slow motion factor in, which we got to figure out how to do that with the live streams, because I think that would really enhance the viewer experience for sure. But I did not see that coming at all, Wes. I didn't see.
Yeah, no college. I could read everything. I can learn everything I need off of YouTube anyway.
Oh, of course you could. You get it all from life experience. Look at you. You're back out in the field. You have this regular thing going on. Now you're putting yourself back in the field too, covering high school stuff again.
Yeah, they just can't keep me away. Those pesky 500-yard restrictions. I guess that only holds up for a certain amount of time.
Apparently so.
On that note, right? I think we should probably change gears a little bit here.
I was going to say, I don't know how to segue. Yeah.
Should we? No, we're not going to introduce our guest. That's what we like to call a big market tease. A little bit later, we don't have to give that away just yet. But of course, we're going to be talking about the Snyder Cut. But let's go to trending now, Nick. What's trending for you?
Well, Wes, let's update the people on what's going on with the Change My Mind serial bracket, which, by the way, okay, before you give people the second round or the second round pairings, I just want to let you know that our resident food expert, Brendan Curie, texted me today and was not happy that we did not involve him in this process because he had quite a few things that he would have debated with us. So,
very we might have to get him back, on the air to maybe break down the Final Four, the Elite Eight, maybe a region, maybe a look back, one shining moment, one shining spoon.
Yeah, there we go.
With Brendan Curie, I like that. That could be a good one there.
I can get behind that.
So all the pairings it really hasn't changed from the last update. There's not really a whole lot to update, John, from the last, because I dropped the ball. And if there's one major update, is that I am never, ever doing a March Madness bracket again or organizing that, because that is the most tedious shit ever. But we do it for the people. We do it for the people. So it's all for you guys out there.
Right. We're the People's Podcast.
Right. But it horribly sucks.
Yeah. I mean, every time we've done a poll, it's like it's a process. But you know what, Wes? We do it for the people. But next year, we know that Dork's going to have March Madness. We know that Mac and Goo's going to have it, and PCP. we could, for the people, say, we're not going to give you guys another poll because you already have enough of that, bracket bullshit to deal with.
I never want to see another bracket again. Like, I don't even want to fill out like a college basketball bracket at this point. I am bracket brained. It's just, that's where I'm at.
All right, then why don't we go to something else that you talked about a little bit?
But the polls are live. The second round polls are live. That's
good. Awesome. That's all that matters. We'll make sure the winner at the end of all this is going to get a shirt courtesy of Wes and I. Of course, if you want to buy one because you didn't fill out a bracket, you can go get them over on TeePublic in the Change My Mind store. But Wes, you like me now have 2 podcasts in the DSG. Yes. You have a third one for work as well. Wow. You're leading the league right now.
I could be, yeah. The furloughed friend is still furloughed,
right? Exactly. Yes. No, we both got jobs, so it's now the fun. True. I don't know why that's.
But it's kind of interesting because the furloughed friends got jobs, so the furloughed friends podcast is now furloughed.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
It's interesting how that works out.
Exactly. Take that up with Lucy. But anyways, your other show, Caps Booze, you guys talked about the first episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which, by the way, get rid of The Falcon. Just call him Falcon. I don't know why. I didn't even know his name was The Falcon.
Yeah, I don't get it either. It's like the Ohio State. It's a little arrogant if you ask me. But I mean, we already reviewed it. Nick, please lead off with your thoughts. I think actually before we do that, from moving on out here, I think we're trying to decide a good way to kind of tackle these MCU Disney Plus shows. So I think for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier podcast or season here for this podcast, I think we're going to take the perspectives of each character and kind of debate who won the episode, whether it was the Falcon or the Winter Soldier here.
Right.
And we'll stick with that character throughout the course of the season.
I can get behind that 100% as long as I get Bucky in the course of it all.
You got it. Because I wanted Sam. Sam.
Oh, well, look at this. It's perfect.
You see that reverse psychology in the text? Like, I think you want to go Bucky.
Yeah, I would have picked. Look, Sam had a great episode for sure. Well, he had an impactful episode. I would say that he took it on the chin quite a bit in the course of all this. And Bucky, it's so like this is a really close one. I'll give you that because there's a moment, of course, at the end of the first episode for Sam where it's like, ugh. But with Bucky, we finally see him with a little bit of an attitude, a little bit of a personality. It's not just sad Bucky Barnes anymore. We get badass Winter Soldier at the beginning, and then we have regret and like now it's like, oh, I can finally get behind him being like a bit depressed. But there wasn't just that in the course of all. It's like it meant something for the first time. So this was a huge win for Bucky, and between the interactions with the father of the son that he killed and the action, and then of course stuff for the shrink where he's got a little attitude. Big fan of Bucky, and just I feel like every moment he was on screen, I was glued. I mean, it's just this episode was a huge win for the show in general.
Episode knocked it out of the park. I loved it. It was the complete antithesis of what WandaVision was, and I don't mean that as a slight or positive or negative. They're just two opposites of each other, and I thought they both worked wonderfully. This was a great outing for Winter Soldier. I agree with you. I particularly loved the interaction with the 12-step programs with the Congresswoman in the parking lot there. I thought that was very serious yet fun with the smile. And kind of like working around the car with like the drone and everything. I thought that was very cool. But this episode has to go to Falcon without a doubt. You get his backstory. For what it's worth, the Winter Soldier has been in 3, 4, 5 Marvel movies at this point, and been the focal point of at least one, right? If not 1.5, 2 with Civil War. But Falcon, really, we don't really know a whole. He just kind of came into the picture and hasn't really been entirely into the fold. He's just kind of jumped in these major missions. So I think to get the backstory of him kind of doing the, Bubblegum Shrimp Company sort of thing with him and his sister, the dynamic, the rapport that he and his sister have is awesome. I love that back and forth. And again, I thought the biggest idea, we talked about this in our Age of Ultron pod with Doc, the MCU rewatch vault. How are these superheroes making money? And I think that's a very interesting topic that everybody kind of wonders, but didn't really find out about. Like how are they doing this? So shame on Tony Stark for not dropping off all of his millions, or dare I say, shame on Pepper Potts for hoarding all of Tony's millions. One way or the other there, but there should be some sort of a hero fund.
Yeah, and it's a tiny thing. I feel like, generally speaking, when you like in the back of any comic book fan's mind, where it's like, how do they make their money? Like, obviously, Bruce Wayne, Tony Stark, you kind of know, but you were right on this, Wes. Like, we didn't talk about it. You're the one that brought it up. You knew, right? Like, it's almost like you knew this was coming.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
Well, we were talking about having insiders on. Jokes on everybody. Wes is the insider. He knows what's going on with Disney. But
her.
That's wow, me too. I thought that you were the first person I thought of when all that was going on, and I did think going into this episode, as we get it, like them separate at the beginning, it's why is it going to take? So it could take forever to get them together. Or is it going to be like that? And it was great. I honestly thought they did an awesome job, and I saw that the numbers on this were better than WandaVision and The Mandalorian. I'm assuming season 2 from the report that I saw. So I mean, that's no. As good as WandaVision was, that's not really a surprise because these two characters, as much as there's more room for development for them,
familiar.
Exactly. Bingo.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I thought I'm very excited, but I do agree. I don't know how much longer they can be separated from one another for the rest of the show. 6 episodes, 45 minutes. I can't imagine it will take much time in episode 2 for them to kind of team up. They already referenced that Sam has been trying to get in touch with Bucky and stuff in the therapy sessions there. So yeah, I don't think it'll be too much time. And of course, they still have to have, John Walker, his backstory, a little bit reintroduce Baron Zemo, where's Sharon Carter through all of this. So they have a little bit of work to do in a short amount of time.
I really get the impression Sharon Carter's role is going to be very tiny also. Obviously, she's a secondary character in this, but I just feel like we're not going to see her as much as the trailers might have led us to believe.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. But, we did get the big cameo. Rhodey, that's the big cameo we've been waiting for.
Yes, this is true, finally. And is it Mephisto or is it not? Make sure you guys go, what is it, MCU at home on Twitter? Go respond to the Goose poll. Definitely did not put out by Wes because he's sick of that shit.
Yes, absolutely. You can tell that was not me. And also, speaking of getting sick of, if you're not sick of Justice League yet, there's more. There's more coming, people. HBO Max announced a black and white version of the reworked superhero movie will be available. Of course, Snyder gave no release date for this, but he did offer up a name. Zack Snyder's Justice League, Justice is Gray. Are you fucking shitting me, Nick?
I don't get it. Like, where's the Justice Gray in the portion of all this? It's pretty clear that you're fighting a big bad, and it's like a Thanos type, group that you're dealing with here.
Right.
What's the point? Who gives a shit about seeing this in black and white? The title's stupid. I get.
It's fart sniffing at its finest.
True.
It is fart sniffing at its finest. It's one last final drawing blood from a stone to get the final dollars they can out of this bad boy. But, we're not getting an Ayers cut. And we'll talk about this with our guest coming up. But we're reportedly not getting, any further spinoffs of this, what appears to be widely popular Justice League Snyder cut. So, it leaves a lot of questions. So, again, we'll hopefully get some of those answered moving forward.
I don't any of it. It's stupid. The movie, well, we'll talk about the movie in a second. What were you going to say?
Yes. Are you interested in Game of Thrones spinoffs?
I mean, sure, but
I'd like 7 of them.
I'd like a spinoff that I give a shit about. I mean, this Targaryen one, I'll give a shot, but the other ones, I don't know. First Dornish warrior for the Neymar. I don't know. Neymar? Is it Neymar? Is Neymar the Barcelona? Is he Barcelona still?
No, I didn't finish that. Nymeria.
Okay. Well, either way, Wes,
that's my mistake. Yeah. So apparently, if you're just gonna partially reference some of these without giving the people at home what we're talking about, Nick is referring to the Game of Thrones spinoffs that are in development at HBO. House of the Dragon was the one that he might be interested in, which is already in production, may already be filming. 300 years before the events of Game of Thrones, of course, centering around the story of House of Targaryen. There's an untitled Duncan Egg project, which will go into the adventures of Sir Duncan the Tall and his Squire Egg, who, of course, was King Aegon the Fifth Targaryen, who was, I believe, at the wall there. He was the maester at the wall there.
Okay. See, but there's too much that needs to be explained in the course of this already. These should not be like this Targaryen stuff. Sure, I'm in on, but just it shouldn't be that complicated. We've gone over this before. If the synopsis is too long, then that's great.
where I disagree with you is that that's what the show is. Lord of the Rings is complicated. It's all convoluted. It's about ties. It's about connections. That's the whole show, right? The issue where I have with this is that there's 7 because there's an untitled Numeria project. There's a story about 9 voyages. They have to do something about another thing to do with the Targaryens. They have a story on Flea Bottom, which is supposed to be like Peaky Blinders-esque. There's a Game of Thrones animated drama series and another Game of Thrones themed story with Naomi Watts starring as the Age of Heroes during the start of the Long Night, which is great. It's great because they have all these like history and there's all this folklore and history, fictional history behind this world that you can fill out all the gaps in here. That's awesome. But this is like not striking where the iron's hot.
No, it's not striking where the iron's hot, Wes. But and first of all, to say that Lord of the Rings is as convoluted as Game of Thrones is no shot in hell. It's there are some complicated things.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you said it.
I said that's what the show is. Like that's what Game of Thrones is. That's what the book is. That's what I meant to say.
But you brought you brought up Lord of the Rings as like a reference point. I thought that's what you were trying to say.
Did it? I didn't mean to.
Okay,
I meant Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying they were similar.
But that's what the book is. That's what the whole idea of the show is about. Is as it ties in.
I just figure you getting in shots after Lord of the Rings people won the debate over the Harry Potter people a while back. So I can understand why you'd still be upset. Anyways. I don't mind that. Like what you're talking about, getting into so many details, but there are so many other details that I think we care about more. And why not go and further the story that we've already kind of gotten to know, and then maybe use some other proper, like the Targaryen stuff is fine. Peaky Blinders-esque. What does that mean exactly when we're talking about like this medieval high fantasy world? So. There's one show in here at least that I like, and the animated one.
Peaky Blinders asked to answer that question would be like a look at life on the bottom, at the ground floor, in this like really dilapidated poor community, and the people that live in this poor communities and make it run. So that's the Peaky Blinders-esque. Like,
okay, fair, that makes more sense. But I think Shine put it best on the news dump for Mac and Goo. Sir Robert's Rebellion. Why don't we get that? I mean, I understand there's, you're dealing with some high level people with that. Sean Bean's going to be involved in that, so it might be tough to get him. But I would absolutely eat that shit up. That and Targaryens, and then give me a Snow or or an Arya story. Boom, you have 4 shows right there. We have 7. You can then go and do the animated show. You have 5. Or are you doing a better job?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, I think your first issue with why they wouldn't do something with Robert Rebellions with Sean Bean is the same reason why they wouldn't do something with Jon Snow or Arya Stark. What makes you think Jon Snow or Arya Stark, the actors, want to carry on that role and maybe not separate themselves from those characters moving forward?
Maybe. I guess it's a fair point. But Sean Bean would do it. I more so was saying like Sean Bean with the money. Maybe you can't afford him right now, which would be
Kit Harington. You think you can afford Kit Harington?
No,
or
you're right.
Stark?
No. You're right. You're absolutely right about that point. But I think Sean Bean would be open to reprising that role because he got it. He was so he was around for such a short amount of time.
You're just tied up with Lord of the Rings here. I got to go back and listen to the tape, whether I said Lord of the Rings or whether that was just like stuck in the crevices of your mind.
I don't think it was. I tend not to hear things. But speaking of new shows and superstars, we're getting a movie and an animated show on Netflix for Keanu Reeves' Berserker comic, which you talked about. Doc is reviewing over for Geeks Worldwide. We talked about it on TLDR a little bit, and we'll continue talking about it as we shift over to the comic book Minute West. And this is, you're dealing with an action hero, and he's kind of got Wolverine vibes, but I'm kind of surprised, and I think Marcus Estevez of the now defunct Boxers podcast mentioned this on Twitter. Why would Keanu want to keep playing basically the same character over and over and over again? I think this has potential to be awesome, but it is an interesting point. Like, I get somewhat John Wick vibes from this combined, like John Wick meets Wolverine. So I don't know what you think about that. If you want to watch it.
Well, not to bring it back to a compelling conspiracy theory here, but there is an interesting conspiracy theory regarding many celebrities and actors. I think one of which is Nicolas Cage, but they're actually time travelers. Excuse me. Jay-Z, another one. I'm pulled up this here. Just a quick Google search: Keanu Reeves time traveler. 1,200 years ago, there's a very interesting picture, if you want to give that an old Bing, if you will. It looks spitting images. So these like doppelganger things are very interesting. So I'd be all, I wouldn't be surprised if he's just telling his story that he's lived, for ages and ages. And this is just one of his warrior stories from a past life.
Huh. Okay. I think I'm seeing. Is he wearing like a weird old fashioned hat?
Yeah. He kind of looks like a Spanish conquistador.
Yeah. I definitely get that kind of vibe. Huh. That's weird. Maybe. That's a good point. I'm good. I'm open to this, but I do think it's kind of bizarre that like he's again doing something. It's pretty much the same thing again and again.
He's kind of a one-note actor, though. I mean, what else? He kind of plays that same role that's like kind of understated, doesn't really say a lot. Whether that's like Shane Falco or Neo, it's kind of the same person.
I mean, he even I've said it before. I like his portrayal of Constantine, but he's not really what John Constantine is. He basically plays it like he does Neo or John Wick or whatever, just slightly more of an asshole in the course of it all. But of course, we're going to be talking plenty of comics on TLDR this week with the show Invincible starting on Amazon Prime on Friday. I'm going to be talking about that. Doc's going to have another image book for you guys as well. I'm reviewing Once and Future for Geeks Worldwide. Doc is reviewing Batman White Knight Presents Harley Quinn. It's the finale, the 6th issue for Geeks Worldwide. And speaking of Geeks Worldwide, Wes, as we close up the comic book minute and move on to our main topic today, which is Zack Snyder's Justice League, would you like to welcome in our guest?
Yes, we have the man himself, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. KC Walsh. KC Walsh, welcome to the program.
What's going on?
Speaking of Keanu Reeves, you still got that haircut going. Yeah, we can hear you.
I know. I haven't been to a barber in a while.
How you doing, man? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm a little lethargic. I got my vaccine yesterday.
Oh,
I got the Johnson & Johnson.
Oh, nice.
So it kind of fucked me up.
Oh, okay. Well, guess what? I'm drinking scotch, so Wes is a good chance he's under the influence. So we're all messed up on the show tonight.
Of Gatorade, but may I suggest drink plenty of fluids, high vitamin C intake, high vitamin D intake, magnesium, all that good stuff. Maybe just a natural multivitamin, just as a catch-all.
But anyways, we're not just here to help Casey feel better and get through his shot and everything. We're here to talk about the Zack Snyder's Justice League, which we talked about with KC West. What episode was that all the way back? Was it?
That is a callback to episode 67, #release the Snyder cut with KC Walsh on May 26, 2020, almost a year ago, a little under a year ago here.
Yeah, it's crazy that it took the pandemic, and Casey, we got it. We got the movie that you were dying to have for years.
So happy it's over.
A quick synopsis, Wes. Zack Snyder's definitive director's cut of Justice League, determined to ensure Spider-Man's ultimate sacrifice was not in vain. Bruce Wayne aligns forces.
Spider-Man,
Did I say Spider-Man? Did I say Spider-Man? Well, see, now I'm wondering, Wes, if I was just hearing things about the Lord of the Rings before.
It could be. Yeah.
Superman's ultimate sacrifice was not in vain. Bruce Wayne aligns forces with Diana Prince with plans to recruit a team of metahumans to protect the world from an approaching threat of catastrophic proportions. Of course, directed by Zack Snyder, written by Chris Terrio and Zack Snyder. Wes, what were the scores?
Yeah, so it got an 8.4 out of 10 on IMDb compared to 6.2 back in 2017. So that's a pretty, 2-point bump there. It's pretty considerable. A 74-96 split on Rotten Tomatoes compared to a 40-71 split in 2017, with a 2021 critics consensus of Zack Snyder's Justice League lives up to its title with a sprawling cut that expands to fit the director's vision and should satisfy the fans who willed it into existence. As compared to the 2017 critics consensus, which of course was Justice League leaps over a number of DC movies, but its single bound isn't enough to shed the murky aesthetic, thin characters, and chaotic action that continue to dog that franchise. I don't know who that critic consensus is, but I love that there. Single bound, a lot of wordplay, very snappy, but it gets to the punch and 180 characters or less. I love it.
Yeah. Speaking of 180 characters or less, Casey, we now do tweet length reviews to kick things off whenever we're doing our exit reviews or exit surveys on a movie. So what's your score for Zack Snyder's Justice League and your tweet link.
It's fine.
You're saving a whole bunch of characters. I like it. If you had to give it a score out of 1 out of 100, very, very complex scale here. So if you'd like me to break it down one more time, I can. But 1 out of 100, what would you rate this movie?
I'd give it like a 70 or 75, I guess. I mean, it's a very middling movie, in my opinion. And I think if you go back and look at a lot of the reviews too, that's kind of what the reviews stand. I mean, yeah, the Rotten Tomatoes score is higher, but if you go actually looking deep down and dig into those reviews, it's a lot of like 6 and 7s. And I think that's warranted. I think the movie is okay. I think it still has a lot of issues. I think it's way too fucking long. Jesus Christ, 4 hours for like. I think there's a perfect movie in there if you would have cut an hour and a half out of it and then done a reshoot with some additional Superman stuff. I think some of the stuff in Josh's cut worked better. I think some of the stuff, particularly the action and the kind of designs, worked better in Snyder's cut. So I think there's a good, like, solid A movie between the two. But I mean, I don't know. It is not like this like sprawling masterpiece that people want to like claim it is. It's like a bunch of cool vignettes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. And so this is an improvement overall, would you say, from your score in 2017?
Oh, did we lose Casey?
Yeah, I think it's a slight improvement. Again, I think the 2017 version kind of suffered from bad editing, bad CGI, and rushed kind of reshoot production and that kind of thing. And I think Josh definitely. I think WB's biggest issue was like they could have just cut down Snyder's version to something shorter, and like I said, just added like some better Superman stuff, and they would have had a much better outing the first time around. I guess the biggest pull away from this whole thing is like what WB, why they felt they needed to reshoot the whole movie is kind of baffling. Like you could have definitely salvaged what you had.
I like it. So that's just the tip of the iceberg as we're getting here with KC Walsh. Nick, what is your tweet length review, not your queef length review?
I think my review is quite a bit longer, and Casey and I are a little apart on this because I was with you, Wes, where I thought the original Justice League that came out in 2017 was more like a C, and even after this, I think it's worse than a C movie. The original version. Look, I get that. Movies have deadlines and like everything else, but I can't believe Warner Brothers put out the Joss Whedon version after what we saw here. That does not warrant all the craziness that we got from the Snyder cult people. But while I don't think we would have gotten a 4-hour movie if we got Snyder on it completely in the original version, like Casey said, even if it was chopped down to like 2.5, maybe even 3 hours, I think it would have been superior to the original Justice League movie. And I would definitely like to see more Snyder DC films, but not 4 hours every freaking time. And I'm giving this, I know you're going to like this, Casey, but I'm giving it a 92. I really enjoyed a lot of this.
Nick loves everything. I love it. But actually, you know what? I'm not too far off from Nick. I give this about a 10-point increase from the 2017 release of Justice League. So I would say it's around a 75. I think we're in lockstep over that, Nick. But I'll give this an 85 out of 100 with a review of in a no-lose situation, Snyder delivers a better product than the original. It's slow moving, but the characters are fleshed out. The action sequences are improved, and it closes with some big time fan service overall. So whether that's a win or not, I think that was definitely just a little nod of the cap to the fans who actually fought for this movie. But what comes next, I have no idea. So I'm not sure what to make out of it.
And that's why we have Casey here, because of course, in the course of all this, Casey, we see people saying restore the Snyderverse. Then you see a Batman thing pop, Ben Affleck. Oh, nothing. So you're saying there's nothing else Snyder's done with DC?
Nope, they're done. In fact, Ann Sarnoff, who's like the CEO of Warner Brothers or Warner Media, put out an interview this morning when everyone thought they were going to be like, when everyone thought like JL2 was going to get announced and they're going to restore the Snyderverse, she comes out and says, "Nah, we're good, we're done." And in the same interview was like, "Nah, we're not doing the air cut either."
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I think it was kind of I don't know. I got a good laugh out of it because I think everyone just it's getting good praise, and I think everyone's really high on it. I just don't think it has the staying power as maybe like it just has nothing to say. It's just such a basic like superhero movie when you get down to the nitty gritty, and it still has these glaring problems, and we can talk about those later, I guess. But yeah, I mean, basically Warner Brothers is just done with Snyder, and when you get into the nitty gritty of like what happened behind the scenes of getting JSL done Zack Snyder's Justice League done, and when you figure out that like Snyder and WB kind of fought the entire way, and they didn't want him to do extra footage, and he did it anyway, and all this other stuff. You kind of just see that like that relationship has kind of soured, and I think they're both kind of just like over each other. And Snyder's going to go do his Netflix stuff and not have to worry about studio interference.
Casey, I'm gonna remove you from the group real quick. You're breaking up on us pretty hard here. So if you could come back with a better internet connection in like 2 minutes or so, that would be great. And we'll let you right back in. But we're gonna remove you from the moment here. So I apologize for that. Just the audio there is really tough there. So, but I think he brings up some interesting points with things that we're not necessarily privy to behind the scenes. Of course, there was all the issues when you talk about Jeff Johns and Ray Fisher and Joss Whedon. But from the sounds of it, it sounds like Zack Snyder could be a very difficult person to work with. He seems like a very arrogant person, someone who likes to slap his name on before the title of movies. Mm-hmm. So he seems to be very self-absorbed, at least from what evidence he shows us. So I can imagine that he's very much into his own work. I think you could even tell that by the color palette that he uses, and even with like the overuse of slow motion. So I think he takes himself very much literally as an artist, and doesn't want his artistic vision to be compromised. We're gonna bring Casey back in here to see how his reception is.
Sorry, I think I was on like LTE connection, not a Wi-Fi connection, so that was part of the problem.
Oh, that's a big problem. Come on, man, Geeks Worldwide, get on that.
I was outside before I started this.
So you bring up, Wes, how he, as a director, Snyder doesn't want to have his stuff tampered with. And I'm curious, Casey, when you look at this, what are you brought up how there are some significant flaws in the course of this movie. Is there any one particular thing that stand out, or are there a few things that you thought were?
There's a few. So I think, again, if we want to go back to the epilogue and the fan servicey stuff, like that epilogue is completely unnecessary. It adds 20 minutes to the film that just did not need to be there. The Joker and Batman scene is so fucking stupid. Like,
see, I loved it. I thought it was fun.
I'm so dumb. Okay, so let's break it down. So they need Joker's help. Why? Why do they need Joker's help? What's he gonna do against Superman? Mm-hmm. They have this weird conversation about reach arounds and fucking and the death of Robin. Jared Leto is just chewing up scenery. It's shot like with a VHS handycam. Like it keeps going in and out of focus. And you could tell like they weren't even in the same room when they shot it. It's all just like close-ups of Ben Affleck and Leto's face. And then Superman gets there and he arrives when like they're all done with their conversation. And then what happens? Like he's just gonna murder them all. Like what are they gonna do? It seemed to only exist so those two could have a conversation, and Snyder kind of alluded that to himself. And then you get to the Martian Manhunter scene. And again, Martian Manhunter in this movie is completely pointless. Like he has that conversation, that scene with where he's Martha and he visits Lois. Like why is he going to Lois and having this conversation? Like why? That should have been Martha. It should have been Martian Manhunter. Like who cares?
And was he the general the whole time? Is that what we're supposed to assume?
I guess so. But again, you go back to the last scene where he's like, well, I was just sitting back on the sidelines for the past like 3 years while all this other shit was going down, and now I decided I'm gonna like come help. I guess. Like okay, we could have used your help like during like Metropolis getting destroyed or the Suicide Squad, like, or whatever. So the bad guy in the Suicide Squad was fucking shit up, or when BVS was happening, we couldn't like have you just like just sitting back just watching this all go down.
This is the kind of thing that normally bugs you, Wes. That's
well. So my question is, so I'm not as big of a DC fan or know like the whole gallery of everything. So who is Martian the Manhunter and what is his deal? So why should I have been like I recognize who he is and as a member of the Justice League, but I don't really recognize the significance
So he's like the last Martian of Mars. So he comes to Earth as like a refugee, basically. It's very similar to Superman. He comes to Earth as a refugee, and is basically has the ability to shapeshift, so he can just hide out and be whoever he wants. So that's kind of his role. Is he kind of has these like he's basically the Vision and a scroll kind of all wrapped in one, I guess.
Okay,
very similar.
Thank you for putting it that way for me.
Yep. So he's a Superman level like power. So like he could have definitely jumped in there and helped out a lot. And so for the fact that he was just like sitting back on the sidelines where all this other stuff was going down, and then decides at the end of all this is like, yeah, maybe now, like if something happens again, I guess I'm here if you need me. And then the fact that Batman, the movie before, Batman was just ready to murder like an alien guy, and then this alien just shows up on his doorstep. And he's like, yeah, he's like so nonchalant and like cool about it. He's like, okay, like whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. This was definitely a movie for the fans, and you can kind of feel that through and through. For example, like if you go back to the dark side stuff, like none of that even makes sense. Like, so Darkseid shows up in the history lesson. He finds the anti-life equation on Earth when he's fighting all the gods and all the armies of men and stuff. And then he just gets fucking owned by Ares in one shot, who, again, in the previous film, Wonder Woman fucking owned Ares. So, like, why does she need all these other people's help?
Well, and my big question, I had this a little bit later, but if Zeus and Ares are fighting side by side, wasn't it in Wonder Woman where Ares wanted to destroy Earth? So why like is he on the opposite side where he wants to protect Earth now?
Again, it makes it's a lot. It just seems like a lot of stuff that he just like. Again, it's Snyder style. It's like it's visuals over substance. So like you can always kind of break this stuff down as to like it just doesn't kind of line up with the rest of what's going on. And again, that scene kind of proves it again, because then. Later in the film, we find out Steppenwolf is just like happens to be walking out like in the middle of like a field, and then finds the anti-life equation again, and then he goes back to Darkseid and like, hey, I found it. It's Earth, and like, you're like, wait, wasn't Darkseid just here? Like, why wouldn't he? He just forgot. Like,
why wouldn't he remember? Yeah.
Does he have super dementia? Like, I don't understand. Like, where did he like just forget that he like this was like his whole entire goal in life is to find this anti-life equation. He found it, and then he just forgot one day. It just doesn't like it's all right. It's just stuff like that doesn't like line up for me.
There are definitely plot holes in this that you're bringing up that I know that got lost on me because, like you said, fan service. When I see things like Wonder Woman in her action sequence, the opening one was amazing. I know they overused that music with her quite a bit. It got a little bit much.
Man, it wasn't even the guitar riff. I preferred the guitar riff, not this like Amazonian type music.
That score. Fuck, that score is so all over the place too. It's like it's just like it's like a music video vignette. Like the scene with Iris and Barry is like, do we need like this like slow like cover song?
That was
as he knocks the hot dog out of her face. Like, come on, man. And like again, the Iris West thing is like she's not. If my wife is watching that, she has no idea who that person is. Like, she's not named. She never has a line. She's just some random girl in a car. So there was no that scene could have been cut out completely. There's no reason for it other than to show other than to say, hey, look, I put Iris West in this movie, and only people who like watch the credits are gonna know like that's Iris West because like no one else would know because the movie doesn't tell you.
Well, and that's how I felt about Ryan Choi. I had to go back and do some research, and they spent some time on him with the Star Lab scientist, and him like something about his like girlfriend, and then like he later becomes the leader of the Star Labs, and I'm like, who is this guy? He becomes Adam. Is that what it is?
Yeah. So there's two Adams, and there's an Adam before him. I forget his name, and then there's Ryan Choi who uses technology. Basically, he's like the Ant-Man of DC, and
Ray Palmer.
That was kind of setting that up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And again, it's just like all this stuff that could have all been cut out. Like, I don't like why you're just putting stuff in here because you want to make a bloated film that had everything that you had envisioned originally that has no bearing on what's going to be in the future. And then you're just kind of disappointing people because now they're all going to be mad that none of this stuff's ever going to come to fruition. And then this film's just going to sit like in its own like ether somewhere.
Well, okay, so that's my question then. So if there was zero hope of a Justice League 2 or Justice League 3 or picking up anywhere from Zack Snyder's cut left off, why put in these little things like Ryan Choi, Martian the Manhunter, Iris West, all these little Easter eggs that may lead to a connection of a future? that's non-existent.
Because that was his original film. So like I said, like the goal into going into Zack Snyder's Justice League was to give the fans the film that he originally intended. So that's what he did. He just put it all out there. Whether that led to anything or not, and it won't. I mean, WB that's the thing. Snyder's been clear saying, hey, like WB told me when I made this thing that it's not canon. I'm not going to get to make more. Like I'm done after this. This is the end of my trilogy. And then, like I said, WB came out today and reiterated that. So it was just kind of him finishing off like his vision and just giving kind of like the whole the everything in the kitchen sink tune, you know.
And that's fair, Casey, especially with everything that went on. What probably ended up leading to Snyder getting his chance to do his version of Justice League with all the craziness that we saw on Twitter and others, I'm sure on Instagram and whatnot. But when you look at this movie, like I understand when Joss Whedon's version came out at first, I was like, okay, this is fine. This movie's okay. But after I see this, yes, there's definitely fat on this movie. You can definitely pull some stuff out. Like I said, like 2.5 hours, maybe 3. I don't know which one would have made more sense where you can still keep like the Steppenwolf story, which I liked a lot more. Cyborg, who I cared about a lot more, who I normally don't care about. All of that. Do you think that DC would have been in a better position had this, again, a cut down version of this movie been put out instead of the Whedon one? Because we got the teases to Flashpoint and other things like that.
I definitely do think they would have been in a better position. But again, like you have to understand that like Snyder had failed twice before, right? So, I mean, Man of Steel was a relatively weak outing for them. BVS didn't even break $1 billion when both Dark Knight films ahead of time that didn't have Superman, and it did. So from WB's standpoint, he had not lived up to his expectations. And so when he left the film, I think they took the opportunity to say, okay, let's try to make this a more broader interpretation that's going to gather more of an audience than Snyder's stuff would. Because that's the thing about Snyder's films is they're very directed at his audience. And that's not what WB wants to do. Like they want to have they want to bring in families. They want to bring in kids. They want to bring in women. They want to bring in a wider array of an audience as opposed to strictly the Snyder fans. And I think that's kind of their goal, and that seems to be their goal moving forward. As I said, Ann Sanoff said that today, that their goal moving forward is to be more diverse. So we're going to get a Black Superman, and we're going to get the Beetle. We're going to get Zatanna.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
So I think like their kind of goal moving forward is to kind of emulate the Marvel formula and to grab a wider audience as opposed to like zeroing in on this like specific fan group.
Okay, so I think we have a couple of rapid fire questions here before we get to some maybe a little bit more funner, detailed, nitty gritty thing. So just first thing, lightning round. Did you want to dislike this movie when it came out?
I sure did.
Did you dislike it?
No, I didn't. I didn't dislike it. Again, I think it has a lot of good stuff there. The action is dope. I could have done without Wonder Woman smashing people's heads into walls. Again,
the decapitation of Steppenwolf though is pretty badass.
It is. Again, it's badass. But again, Superman setting up a sentient life form to get decapitated just does not sit right with me at all. Like you had set up this idea in the previous film in Batman vs Superman that like these heroes were going to become more lighthearted and they were going to become like more aware of like that they're like beacons of hope and beacons of humanity, and then you open up with Wonder Woman just like vaporizing a guy in a museum in front of a bunch of kids, and then smashing skulls against walls, and then Superman. And this is my biggest problem with this movie: is Superman has one line. He has one line in that final fight. One. He never talks to the other leaguers. He never has a conversation with them. There's no like optimism or hope. He's donned in black. He has one line, and then he just becomes like this killing machine. Like his whole purpose in that final scene is just to annihilate Steppenwolf and then like set him up to be decapitated. And it's like that's where I think they could have really like saved themselves with some reshoots, is they could have brought in the elements that Josh brought in, which was this hopeful Superman. He's having fun. He's saving people. He's interacting with the League members. He's not just like there as like this like as this weapon. And fuck, man. The Flash is such a terrible character in this movie. I can't stand it. Like he is basically a walking nuclear battery. That's his only. Every beat he has in this movie is like, all right, he needs to charge something.
I'm gonna pause you right there because I'm quickly remembering how lightning round questions don't necessarily work with you. I love all the information, but it's going to break up. We do have questions that will answer to all those things that you're talking about. So I'd love it.
I'll be faster.
Okay. Was Snyder in a great position, having had 4 years to reflect on what to do differently or give fan service to? Could he have really failed this project?
No, I don't think there was any way. There was no way that whatever he put out, he was going to disappoint the fans. No way. And even like the fact that like a lot of fans thought this movie would be darker and more grim and gritty than I think they expected it to be. Because like I don't know if you guys know, there's concept art out there of like Batman like entering like a warehouse full of like pods of like people being turned into parademons. Which again, this film actually cut out. Like in the Whedon version during the like the history lesson, like we see like them turn people into parademons. This doesn't do any of that.
Right, and with the 4 hours, right, you would think you would be able to keep some sort of time in there. Well, okay, so you mentioned the history lesson. Did you like the breakdown of the chapters with the 4 hour runtime? Do you think that was nice to be able to maybe break it up, take a bathroom break or whatever, have dinner, watch it the next day?
Completely pointless.
Really?
I didn't even notice it, and half the time like they would flash by and I wouldn't even like think about it. I think again, I think this would have been much better as a series. And I think the chapters would have made much more sense. But it seems like he just picked points in the movie. It's like, okay, we're gonna stop it here. We're gonna stop it here. There's no like bookend to those chapters. They're just kind of just stopping points, and there's no really like semblance of why they are where they are.
How'd you watch this? How many days did you watch this for?
I watched it all in one shot.
Okay, one sitting too. One sitting.
One sitting. Yeah, I will do that with every movie, regardless. I hate break because I'm that type of person. I am busy, and I got kids, and if I have to stop something and come back, I'm not going to come back to it. It's not happening. So I got to
take the moment when you can.
Yeah, so I got to see this about a month before everyone else did. So yeah, I got to sit down and just kind of watch it all in one shot, get it out of the way, and then I've had a lot of time to kind of think about it. And I have gone back to it, but even when I go back to it, I'll just like fast forward all the cool parts. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to sit there and torture myself for 4 hours.
But the problem with HBO Max, you can't really fast forward. You got these 10 or 15 minute clips that you can really like fast forward with, right? Like I don't know if that's the issue for you, but at least on my iPad, I can only go at 10 minutes a time.
I have not watched it on HBO Max, so I have no idea.
Oh, well, excuse me, Mr. No, okay. So, Nick, I'm going to throw this question to you. Best addition to the movie, and then we'll go to Casey on that one.
Oh man, I think the backstories that they gave to Steppenwolf and Cyborg. Like these are characters, like I said, I didn't care about much before, especially with Steppenwolf. I thought he was awful in the course of all this. And I thought in the course of the original version, and now it's like, okay, I care about Cyborg. Now it's like Steppenwolf is a halfway decent bad guy. I understand the plot hole issues, Casey, that you were talking about before, but it's strictly in terms of the development of the characters, which is something to me that's so important, giving them that backstory. Now this is a villain who's like halfway decent.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think those, fleshing out the characters that they introduced in Justice League, I thought made more sense otherwise than just having a 2.5 hour movie where you introduce 3 major, alliance members and you don't really know their backstories. So I thought the 4 hours and kind of fleshing out those characters kind of helped out a little bit. But Casey, for you?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Steppenwolf and Cyborg definitely benefited from the 4 hour runtime. But again, like, when you have 4 hours, that's what you can do with 4 hours. Right, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, again, this movie would not have played well in a theater, I don't think. I think they would have gone to a lot of trouble. I don't think it would have made the money. Again, because you're ham-fisting yourself on the number of showings you can have. Like, I mean, when you have a 4 hour movie, you can only show it so many times during the day. And then you don't have the ability to kind of like walk away from it if you want to, and miss those kind of key points of your character development. But I do definitely think that Cyborg and Steppenwolf definitely benefited from the 4 hour runtime. But again, you couldn't have done this theatrically.
Did you like the CGI difference in Steppenwolf? Because I thought that was an upgrade. I thought he looked like the bone and stuff, like the skin of him looked more lifelike. But I didn't really like the armor. I thought the armor was still just like a CGI mishmash. I
liked it more than the original version, but I do wonder how would I have felt about it if this was the original version and we didn't get the other one. That's the thing. Like it's been talked about quite a bit with all the Snyder stuff. It's like, well, you have the original version before that. People were like, either we didn't like it or it was fine. you have that to compare to. And I think Snyder benefited from that a lot. And I personally myself, I just don't know if I would have liked some of the things more than or less than I did after having that to compare it to.
Yeah, I mean, the design is kind of hit and miss with me. Like, I think I do agree. I think it would have been just as effective with the original design, which was, as much as people don't want to like admit it, it was still Snyder's decision to have that original design. Mm-hmm. That was kind of the plan as far as the WB and Snyder had agreed on when they were making that cut. And he went back and changed it. But like his like puppy dog face, so fucking weird. So I think if you would have like mishmashed those designs, like I think if you would have had like his face and structure in that armor, it would look better. But yeah, I think again, it's just so busy. Like there's just so much happening and so much going on. It's always like moving. Like his weird like spider thing was weird.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I thought I was gonna go in that Atlantean's mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like it's. I think it would have been just fine with the original design. Again, I think a lot of people just praise it just because it's Snyder and they don't want to be critical of it. But I don't think they would have complained if it was like, oh, my design was that design. It didn't seem to really affect the intimidation of that character at all.
And I liked how they went away. Like he was well spoken, but he wasn't like that old English type of guy that the original Justice League kind of had. Like I thought he was a little bit more of a brooding, but he didn't like speak the King's English, which is kind of what I got in the first one.
No, let's let Mara do that instead.
Yeah, exactly.
There were so many things that was Steppenwolf in the first movie. Like I feel like every time he talked, pretty much, I just felt like he wasn't addressing anybody who was around him. He was just speaking into the ether. It made no sense.
Monologue.
And he's like talking about Mother and all this stuff. And I didn't quite get it this time around. It felt like he was just. I felt like if there's anybody that stock improved from last movie to this one, or from the original version to this one, it was him more than anybody else. 100%.
Yeah, I think that just goes back to what I said earlier. Like they for why they didn't just salvage Snyder's vision in the first place and just cut it down to 2.5 hours. It's kind of baffling. Like I don't know why they felt the need to like reshoot half the movie and add all that weird stuff in it. I think we would have like not had to be in this mess that we were in today. If they just,
do you think they made money off of this?
Do I think they made money off of it?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I'm thinking like this is like blood from the stone. Like they're just like ringing it over twice. Like what a great marketing idea. Let's like repurpose and repackage the same shit movie and hand it back to them with a bow tie on it.
Like I think they seem to really take advantage of the merchandising off of this movie, because I think they know like, oh yeah, we can make them buy t-shirts and toys for sure.
Look at McFarlane, he's got a ton of shit up.
Yeah, so I think they really milked it that way, but I don't think this is gonna like blow the doors off in terms of HBO Max. And in fact, early numbers have kind of shown that it hasn't been as viewed as Wonder Woman was.
Interesting. That is how.
And in fact, it's like, I think over the weekend, and this is very basic, like estimated numbers. I think it did 1.8 million over the weekend, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier did 1.7. So like the fact that like the biggest like superhero group in the world barely beat out like some C-level like Marvel characters for an hour series is like, ugh. That's not great. Yeah.
Also, probably why they released it a day earlier on HBO Max, right? Just to not compete with that, Falcon and Winter Soldier Friday release.
Well, yeah, because again, I think if they had done it as a series, then they would have been competing with that for the next 6 weeks. And I just don't think they wanted to do that.
Okay. I'll finish up. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I think the one thing that Marvel does really well is whenever their shows release, they own that week. Like everyone talks about it for the entire week. And I think that's only going to happen more with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier as that show kind of progresses, because that show is fucking phenomenal. Like that first episode was, and I know people love WandaVision, but man, that Falcon and the Winter Soldier show felt so cinematic and so expensive. I think that's only going to like increase as like the series goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm agree. Are you? Did you get a full screener of that? Do you know everything that happens there?
I only got the first episode, so I got to see it like a few days before. But yeah, they are very like tight with those screeners.
Yeah, I guess they wouldn't trust many people with that, right?
No,
with all the 4chan
do
leaks
not.
and everything.
No.
We mentioned some of the best additions. I think an honorable mention for the best addition is addition by subtraction, and that's probably the Russian family that was in the original one. That the girl had the bug spray with the parademons, like that all got axed and taken out of. I hated that scene. I didn't know the point of that, like right around Steppenwolf's nuclear reactors thing. So I'm happy they got rid of all that. So I thought that was a good addition by subtraction there. But Casey, what was the worst addition to this movie? What did you hate about this? I think you may have alluded to it already with the Flash, but
yeah, I think the Flash was just so bad. Like again, I think the one thing that Whedon did well was kind of showed his growth as like a hero. Like that the scene between him and Batman and like the
Save One
scene was so good and so missed in this. Instead in this scene, he's like just leading people up a flight of stairs. Like, come on, man. Like and then he gets shot twice. Like the fastest dude out of everybody, he can run the speed of light, and he's the only one that gets fucking shot and injured twice. And at the end,
that's a really good point.
He gets shot by what is essentially a stormtrooper with a fucking cannon. He's running the speed of
that is
light.
My biggest question. I could not understand it.
Boop, he gets shot, and then it's like, oh, now I have to like save the world because my dumbass got fucking shot while running. Like, I know everyone loves that Flash scene of him like rebuilding time and all that stuff.
The payoff is great. The payoff is great, but to get
stunning. But again, you have to let's be like fucking time travel apologists here. When you go back in time, there's a bunch of things you have to deal with, and the same thing is like, so when he goes back in time in that moment, there should be two Flashes, right? Like there should be the Flash that got injured and shot, and then the Flash that goes back in time. So what he should have done was go back and prevent himself from getting shot, not go back and
finish it,
finish it, not go back and touch Cyborg, because then you have the split deviation of time.
Oh wow!
And that's like a 1 in 1 trillion shot, right? I mean, what are the odds of that parademon making that shot?
The fact that Batman can just go around and just fuck those parademons up, and then Flash just gets fucking sniped like on the random.
Right.
And
the first time is kind of excusable, right? Because I don't think he's running. Like, even though he should kind of have like a spider sense, right, of something kind of coming at him to some degree. But that you can kind of explain that away. But when he's in, there's a super speed mode or using the Speed Force or whatever, there's no reason that he should even be identifiable, right? I mean, like no one knows what's going on.
That part was just insane to me. I was going crazy. And again, so it's again visual over kind of substance. So when he goes back and he like touches Wonder Woman's sword, so she can catch it, all she does is land on the ground. So like why couldn't she just like the sword have just fallen on the ground and her just picked it up? Like what was the purpose of him like putting the sword in her hand at that moment? Like there's just stuff like that that's like, come on.
And the timing wise, right? If we already know that Wonder Woman 84 that she can fly, does she really need the flat? But that's different. That's a whole different.
Well, again, so go back to like when she's on the crawler and she like is like drowning. Like just fly, bitch! Like what are you doing?
Yeah. I love it. So I thought this was great. Real quick though. Okay, so I know we're not getting anything, so I have a whole list of unanswerable questions and what could have happened, but obviously it might not mean anything because there's no future. But the dream sequence in the epilogue, is that a dream sequence with Duster Batman? Or do you think that's like an alternate universe that Flash creates from his like Flashpoint going back in time thing? I mean,
earlier in the movie, he calls it a premonition.
Mm-hmm.
So I assume it's the same thing. I guess he's having these premonitions now. Again, it's not. Who knows? Because like, why would he be having these premonitions? Why is he dreaming about an alternate future? I don't know. Again,
Lois is the key. Right? We get like another allusion to that.
That's another thing too. So go back to the Superman is resurrected moment. And another thing I think Whedon did better. If Lois shows up to that memoriam an hour later or an hour before that moment, then all those people die. Batman dies, the military dies. She just happens to be there coincidentally when she needs to be. Whereas in Whedon's version, like Batman had made it a point to like, hey, I have like this secret weapon in the background. Guns. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that again, I think there's just a lot of stuff like that like just doesn't really mesh very well. And I think the nightmare stuff is kind of that. Like it just seems to exist so he can be like, yeah, this is cool, right? And like Batman's in the apocalypse and he's wearing this cool suit and he like lost 20 pounds.
And now you can sell that shit too. I think it was Hot Toys had a Batman in the
that is a badass duster.
I think
sick.
I think that design is fucking dope. And I love that the comics have been using it as well too. I mean, even Scott Snyder kind of had him in like a trench coat in metal and stuff. But it just does not feed the world building as it should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, it's disappointing because that stuff's cool. Like, I don't necessarily care about the canon and stuff like that with DC. I just show me a good movie, just show me a good time. So the more heroes that you can throw onto a screen there, I'm okay with. Like, especially in that case, I thought Jared Leto. I find him to be, if nothing else, just electric on screen. He captures me. He's captivating. I get how he's over the top and chews scenery, but that's like kind of who he is anyway, right?
Well, see, for me, Casey, and I'm curious, you've been, into comics for, a long, long time. And of course you care about DC a ton. I'm not a Superman guy, but I know how much you care about him. I think I can see a Superman in your background right now. And I just, for me with DC, I love the comics they're putting out now. I think they're better than what Marvel's putting out. And I would just love to see in the animated movies too, they've been much better as well. I want to see the movies, like the live action movies, turn into something that people like. And I feel like with this, as much as, it's a lot of fan service stuff, I think you need something like that to some extent because DC, I mean, like DC struggled a lot. They've been trying to chase Marvel, and it isn't just noticeable like that they're not as good. You can tell they're trying to chase Marvel, which is worse than anything.
Right, but you have to look at where they've had success, right? So Aquaman was a huge success, and what did that do? It was bright, it was colorful, it was full of jokes, and very much emulated Marvel. Shazam, same thing, huge success. I mean, it was low budgeted. They made a ton of money off of it. Bright, colorful, funny, family friendly. And then where they failed, Birds of Prey, hard R, very grounded kind of story.
But that failed money-wise, though, right? I thought that was received pretty well.
I love it. Like I think it's a great movie, and I shouldn't say this online, but my kid loves it.
I loved it too. I thought it was fun.
You're a good parent. Show them
I
how
know.
Yeah.
So I think it resonates, but again, it didn't make the money, and I think the reason it didn't make the money is because it's not grabbing that wider audience, and I think that's the ultimate goal. We have to remember that studios, WB and Disney, they're not in the business of fan service. They're in the business of making large amounts of money, and they're not going to make large amounts of. Shut up!
I thought it was Wes's dog.
They're not going to make large amount of money by just catering to like this niche group of fans who like this like very particular style of movie.
Well, and that's a good point, right? Because that's what Marvel does so well is to be able to cater to those fans, but still appeal to that wide audience, the wives, the moms, the people who aren't necessarily fans of comic books. But that's like it's funny because the DC comics feel darker by nature, and maybe I'm just mistaken by looking at this on like a superficial level. But the DC comics always felt like they were a little bit darker, a little bit grittier than the Marvel comics were.
I mean, I think it totally depends on the character. So, like, I think Batman definitely. Like, and again, I think that's the problem with Snyder is he wants every character to be Batman. But like when you look at people, like when you look at Superman, when you look at Green Lantern, when you look at even Wonder Woman in most cases, like they're very like these hopeful, optimistic, like love and hope and camaraderie and community are all the kind of centers of those comic books. And I think that that's the problem you have when you mesh them all together is it's very hard to like get Batman and Superman in the same room and mesh those tones because they're two kind of polar opposite characters. And I think that's one thing that the animated shows have done so well is that Batman was never the guy who came in and like founded the Justice League, right? He was always the guy that was reluctantly joining. He was always the guy that was kind of like on the outskirts and he was like, fuck, I guess I'll have to fucking team up with these fucking.
But I always have a contingency plan for every single person.
Right. Yeah. In the back of his mind, he was like, if shit goes wrong, I'm going to take all you guys down. So like, I think that's kind of what these films miss is like they want Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and all these characters to kind of live in the same like tonal reality And that's just not the case. Like Batman is an outsider. Batman's a loner. And that's just who he is naturally. And yes, he has his like
guy lives in a cave.
Yeah, he has his like family of sidekicks or whatever. But even those people are all kind of broken, like messed up people.
That's why I've said, Wes, like DC, if they were gonna go this dark route, they should have built around the Bat family, because you have a ton of dark characters. As much as Dick Grayson is a lighter character and everything like that, he still is. He's part of that dark world. So I would have much rather had that personally from day one. But we are where we are now. And in Casey, look, we appreciate you taking the time. When we look forward to what's going on with DC and the next steps, you bring up Zatanna and some of the other stuff, what's going on with Superman, and what do you think, what else is in the works? Anything else that you're hearing right now that you can talk about?
No, I mean the Justice League Dark stuff seems to be really taking like a foothold. Like I said, you're gonna get Constantine series, you're gonna get Zatanna. We have a Batgirl movie coming out. We got Blue Beetle. We got Static Shock. So they're gonna really expand kind of what the Milestone comics. So then you got Icon and oh my gosh, who's the girl that hangs out with him? She was in Young Justice. God dang it.
We put that out on the site too, I think too.
Yeah. So you're gonna get you're gonna get this wider array of characters. It's gonna be. I think that's one thing that DC or WB has been really faltered on is they focused on Batman. Rocket, there you go. They focused on Batman too much, right? So now I think they're going to expand that horizon, and they're going to try to bring in this wider audience. They're going to try to bring in like Blue Beetle's a perfect kids movie. Like it's Batman, it's Spider-Man and Iron Man kind of wrapped into one. And yeah, you can definitely have its darker elements. It's about like a parasite that latches onto a teenager who fights aliens. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of where they're headed, and I think the Batman is going to be there for people who want that dark and like gritty universe, and it definitely showed. Like Matt Reeves has definitely shown that like that shit is going to be crazy dark. It's going to be crazy like gritty. It's going to be like this Seven-esque like superhero movie, and I think that's where that stuff will live on. And then you'll have your Ta-Nehisi Coates, the Supermans, and you'll have your Green Lantern shows and stuff where you can go and be a bit lighter.
I have one other question that I want to ask Casey, because he brings all this up. One thing that you alluded to on Twitter, and I feel like this was in the middle of the pandemic and everything. Sorry, we're still in the pandemic, in the middle of the heart of it last year, when they were talking, I think it was around Fandom, where they were talking about DC multiverse and everything. And I felt like there was some level of allusion to, we could see the animated version of Harley Quinn kind of factored into some of the stuff that's gone in with the movies, because they, instead of going the Marvel route, they're trying to make up for their mistakes by making it even bigger. Do you think anything like that could happen down the line?
No. So I think when WB talks about the multiverse, what they're doing is they're setting themselves up for story first stories. So right, they're not going to be beholden to a continuity per se. So that way they can just kind of do whatever they want, and then if they want to bring in characters from the TV shows or from the movies, they certainly can do that in the cameo form, and they can always just say, oh, multiverse, right? And they don't have to they're not like Marvel, where they have to be beholden to like the X follows Y follows Z, where instead they can go, all right, well, we have A here, and then we're going to jump to Z, and then maybe in between there W will pop in, and then that way they can kind of concentrate on story first, and not, because I think what a lot of people assumed was like, oh, then we're gonna get 5 versions of Batman, and we're gonna get like 5. That's not, no, they're not doing that. Like they're not, and I think they've proven that with what happened with Zack Snyder Justice League, right? So I don't know if you guys know the story. Originally, the Martian Manhunter scene was supposed to be a Green Lantern. He shot it as a Green Lantern. It was meant to be a Green Lantern, and WB came in and was like, no, fam. Like you're not casting Green Lantern. We have our own plans for Green Lantern. And I think everyone was like, well, you guys are doing a multiverse. Like, why can't we just have both? And I think the idea is like WB, like, this doesn't sound mean. I don't think WB thinks their audiences are smart enough to understand what a multiverse truly means. And the fact that you can have,
I see that, 5
of the same characters. So they really want to focus on one character, say, per universe. So like, again, you're gonna have Ta-Nehisi Coates as Superman, who's gonna be very different, noticeably different from Superman and Lois, right? Like, no, there's no crossover there. You're gonna have a black Superman with a different background. You're not, as opposed to like 2 Supermen who came from 2 Clark Kents. You know what I mean? And same thing with the Batman. I don't think like the DCU Batman, we're gonna have maybe Keaton as like this older like grizzled Batman training a Batgirl per se, and that's going to be your main DCEU Batman. While over here you're going to have Robert Pattinson be the Batman, right? So you're not going to have two Bruce Waynes like the same age, same everything's the same except maybe like their hair is different, like walking around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also I think to your point too, it's like do you really want Zack Snyder to pick the next Green Lantern, or even if it's not the next Green Lantern for just his movie or whatever, then you have to deal with living up to the expectation or trying to, beat that bar that was already set by another director. That's seems like another job that's already, an already difficult job.
Well, and even Snyder alluded that to himself. So he was like, well, just let me cast the Green Lantern and then you guys cast your Green Lantern and we'll let the fans decide. It's like, dude, see, this is what he does.
Yeah.
He uses his fans as a shield. And that's kind of how
then he dumps them afterwards, right?
Yeah, and that's how he kind of got here in the first place. Is he just says and does whatever he wants, and then he can rile up his fans, and they can go and harass WB to get them to do what
do
they
all
want.
the work for him, right? He can just kick back and not have to do anything.
and that goes to say like this Joker and Batman stuff. Like WB didn't want any of that. Like he just went and did it himself, and then basically they caved in. They're like, oh, fine, like go here's the studio, go shoot your stuff for. Pay these actors scale, don't take a cut of anything, and no new contracts or anything. And so he got to shoot that 4-minute scene or whatever. So I think that's kind of where that's another reason why they're moving away from Snyder is because I don't think either one of them want to deal with each other anymore.
Yeah, I don't play. It seems like a very tumultuous relationship to say the very least, but it's never a tumultuous relationship when you're in the building, Casey. So Casey, thank you so much for joining us here today. We'll let you go, but before we let you go, I would be remiss if the Easter Bunny in me didn't ask for a couple of egg drops in the Falcon and Winter Soldier series here. What do you think? What's a reveal do you think we're going to get? Maybe a cameo or a big tie into the greater MCU universe?
I don't know anything for sure, but there's a rumor.
No, speculation.
So the one thing I did hear is like there's going to be a power broker involved. And I think that was actually hinted at in the credits. Like there's a mention of a power broker. And basically what a power broker is, he's like a guy who like, remember the movie Power that came out on Netflix?
Yeah. So
the power broker is essentially that guy. So like he basically has like a drug or something that he can like give out to people to make them superheroes. Okay. So I think that's going to show up. And I think there's going to be a big character in Madripoor. So Madripoor shows up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and that's basically like this like underworld like hub area. If you guys are comic fans, it's very famous because like Wolverine's kind of like hung out there. And so the big rumor is, and again, this is totally rumor. I've not.
Omega Red.
Omega Red is the big rumor.
Oh,
so I don't know if that's true, but I think that you're definitely going to see a character of that ilk, someone who's going to come in and kind of like blow off like the doors and say, "All right, this is like we're getting serious now."
And that would be that would be Black Widow ties with the Russian ties as well, right? And not only just X-Men too. So that's all kind of pipeline.
Right. And Yelena is supposed to show up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier as well. So yeah, I think what the Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to do really well is it's 6 episodes. So it's going to be super fast paced. Boom, 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 boom. I don't think we're going to have any like moments in WandaVision where we're kind of like less resting on our heels a bit. And then we're going right into like, then there's a month break, which I think they're going to drop Black Widow on Disney Plus in May. And then we get Loki in June, which is going to be another like boom, boom, boom. Like a bunch of every episode is going to be this crazy like multiverse story.
I think that's going to be the love child, if you will, of a WandaVision and Loki, or WandaVision and Falcon story, where you're getting, that classic MCU kind of archetype with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but that little bit of like weirdness with WandaVision in that Loki story, where you're going to have time travel and everything. So I think it's going to be a little bit out there, but still kind of have that roots of an MCU property.
Right. And you can do a lot with that Loki story. Cause again, it's going to introduce time variance, which also ties into like multiverse stuff.
Multiple Lokis, right?
Right. Which also ties into Kang, who they're going to set up for Ant-Man, Quantumania, whatever the name of that fucking movie is. So yeah, and again, the rumor behind Ant-Man is like that Kang is the main villain. They're going to set up Young Avengers with Cassie, and that there will be multiple Kangs that show up in that film as kind of like the big bad third act kind of like battle. So yeah, I think, and again, this is surprising to me, but Loki seems to be their most like I don't know how you say this, their most highly anticipated show based off like fan ratings, or I don't know how they get those numbers, but it seems to be the one that fans are most excited for. And I think again, it's because you can't. Yeah, it's a great match between the wild and crazy and the action. Because I think one thing that WandaVision lacked sorely was those like heavy action beats, and it was a grand experiment in like, let's try something weird and different. I think it succeeded in that, but I think it kind of fell short in like those like moments. Because I think the one, like,
it's not a new genre. You know, it's a good experiment. I agree.
And like Falcon and the Winter Soldier opens up with that amazing action scene that's so cinematic and so like the whole time I was just thinking, I was like, God damn, this looks expensive as shit. So the fact that hopefully they can keep up that pace through the whole thing. And I think again, diving into their individual characters, like I think the Bucky moments are really great in that show, with him and the therapist, and him like having to come to grips with his like past mistakes and him making amends, and having him befriending the dad of the guy he killed, which is so heartbreaking because he wants to tell him so bad. He's like, fuck, just fucking tell him. So I think I really hope that kind of it expands on that stuff and throws in the wider MCU and we get some crazy new characters. Because again, we know that like they're setting up some other things, maybe like Thunderbolts in there with Zemo, and there's been rumors that Songbird's going to show up. And some other like those types of Thunderbolt type of heroes. So
I love it. I want Thunderbolt Ross all over. I want his fingerprints all over this show. I have a feeling this show is going to stink of Thunderbolt Ross by the time we're done.
That'd be great. It'd be awesome. And Casey, the show stinks of KC Walsh right now, and that is the best thing we can ask for at the end of all this. And we really appreciate you coming on, brother, as always. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. I'm happy to do it.
We will talk to you again soon, I'm sure, as we head over into the quarantine corner, Wes.
Yes. Well, I think just a couple things I would like to clear up with unanswerable questions here. So, Arthur Curry definitely left loads of his little semen all over that Icelandic harbor town, right? I just want to be sure about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Like that scene where like the girl starts singing and then like sniffing the sweater as he's like jumping off back into the ocean again. This is just a couple minutes for me to really work out some material here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so Bruce buys a bank to give Clark's mom to help her buy the house back, right? But he'll only get Barry an entry-level job at a crime lab that may hopefully lead to a career that might get his father out of jail.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Why can't Bruce just like pay off, like just pay off the prison, just like, free him up?
I mean, because then well, I guess he could have helped his father out, yeah. But Barry's got, when it comes to Barry's work, you know, he's got to learn somehow, right? He wants to earn it, I guess.
And off of that, why doesn't Barry just use his super speed to break his father out of jail, or rob banks to get the money that he needs to get his dad out of jail?
Because that would be wrong.
Work smarter, not harder.
It would all be wrong. He would feel guilty for it.
It's wrong that he's in prison for the wrongful murder of his wife.
True, but he'd still feel guilty for it.
Yeah,
I'm just telling you. What else you got for me?
Well, I wanted to know why is Lois the key? You know, I think that really would have been interesting.
Oh, that's a good question. And I actually think it's kind of a simple answer. Like, you have Clark who went and died and had this whole tragic thing happen to him, and in death you lose a part of yourself. And I can't remember for the life of me if that was brought up in this version or the original version. But Lois brings him back.
I see. Yeah, I see. So I'm thinking this is still like a reference. No, you're right. I'm thinking this is a reference to like the future, not to when they bring him back in Justice League prior to that. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Gotcha.
My mistake there. There's so much timelines going on. You know,
it's definitely confusing. That's for damn sure.
Also interesting here. So of course we already had KC Walsh tell us that Justice League 2 and 3, you know, won't be happening. But this is just what was set up. At least rumor has it. Justice League 2 would have taken place entirely in the nightmare future, where Darkseid kills Lois Lane and then takes control of Superman with the anti-life equation. And then Justice League 2 and 3 would show Batman's nightmare team fighting to send Flash back in time to prevent the world from falling, and with Lois being the key. Clark and Lois's son would become the new Batman. And then Ben Affleck's the Batman, which he was going to direct, produce, and star in. Slade Wilson and Deathstroke would hunt down Bruce and make his life miserable. Then we, of course, would get Man of Steel 2. Then Wonder Woman 2, which presumably would have been a look into the future, not Wonder Woman 84, kind of like a flashback. You know, maybe that goes her coming back to Themyscira to kind of like using the arrow of Artemis that she was kind of holding at the end there.
Yep.
And looking very contemplating about, you know, and of course, like Steppenwolf really touches a nerve when he's like, I killed all your sisters and you weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think that's where it would have gone there. So, and then Suicide Squad 2, right? If that would have happened, you probably would have got Jared Loker's Joker, maybe Deathstroke involved.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of
Jared
that was. I just, like I said, I don't correct you anymore. I know better, but there's no question about it. This set up the DC universe up much better than the Whedon version did for movies coming out of this. But you know, obviously, unfortunate circumstances that happened around the original filming of Justice League, and then just the craziness that led to the Snyder Cut. It just didn't. We are where we are, and DC just continues to be a mess. But I really do think that, you know, as much as fan service was an issue in all this, like, I'm not a Zack Snyder fan. Sure, I like 300 and stuff, and there are other movies that he's made that I like, but I don't. Like, Zack Snyder makes a movie, okay, whatever. Like, does it look good? Does it look interesting?
Looks good. Looks good. Yeah.
But, I mean, does it look like an interesting movie in general? Yes, visually it's going to look good almost always. But my point is more so, I don't mind a little fan service in this case because DC needs that right now because they're not getting the same fans that they are in general from as Marvel.
Yeah, I thought Kate brought up an interesting point there because it's obviously, you know, a grittier, harder, more adult, you know, Justice League, which is really, you know, content for kids, you know, in reality. So it's like they're tailoring to the adult nerds, the us's of the world, and probably not to the greater community. It's like you're alienating the fan base that you made the content for originally, which is for kids. Right? So I get that. I get why they would want to pivot away from that and not want to have like adult, like only adult dark superhero stuff. I think you can kind of have your cake and eat it too.
Right. I agree. But I still like this movie, so it doesn't matter. I don't mind the fan service test. Yeah,
it's improved.
Exactly. All right. Now we move over to the quarantine corner, Wes. I will keep mine quick, although I did have a few things that I thought were interesting, at least. Gotham Knights being delayed, which probably should have came up in the news. I am very much pissed about that, and I'm very concerned about that too because
what is Gotham Knights?
This is the video game that is going to have Red Hood, Nightwing, Tim Drake's Robin, and then Batgirl. All playable characters. You can team up with people online too. I don't know if you can do 4 players, but you can definitely do 2. And I'm nervous now. Like, you go and pull this, you're going to delay it into next year. I just have a very bad feeling about that. As much as I'm still going to get the game and I'm still like hopeful, that's not a good sign. I watched the Blockbuster documentary. I thought it was solid. It was a lot. I thought it was solid. I'd probably give it like an 80 even.
Okay.
Maybe
I put it on last night. I fell asleep through too late though. So do you think it's worth
I think it's worth it. I think you'll like it. And you might like it a little bit more than me. And look, don't get me wrong, Blockbuster was around and local video stores were around when I was a kid still.
Yeah.
But I just wonder if there are just a couple things that it just didn't. I definitely had moments where I kind of moved away. That's why I'm giving it like an 80.
Okay.
And that's a soft 80. And then I went and, I saw that. I think Mac had retweeted that the Netflix tweet that it was a year ago, Saturday or Friday or whatever, that Tiger King had been unleashed to the masses. I went back and rewatched that with Lauren, and man, I think I'm going to do that every year. I hadn't seen it since then.
You do it every, like a Christmas story. You just put it on at March 15th to commemorate the coronavirus.
It's just for that. When that came out, it was just so wild. I have no desire to watch it again, but I'm sure, and I didn't think I would ever, I don't have no desire to watch it again in the near future. Yet I came back. It was just, like when that got brought up, I was like, well, you know what? I kind of do want to watch it. And I can imagine in a year that I will want to watch it again. And it's still crackers. Crazy, love it. The Joel McHale stuff at the end, though, fucking blows. That was brutal.
So. My initial instinct here is to make fun of you, but I'm not going to do that, Nick, because it's 2021 and New Year's resolution and all. But I think this shows growth, and I would like to actually give a pat on the back to your lovely lady in your life, Lauren, for this. I think opening new doors to you instead of you just watching Transylvania or According to Jim or any Constantine, Lord knows that gets brought up all the time. You were delving into new pools of life, and I just love it. I'm here for it. The Blockbuster documentary is a huge step for you. Tiger King, I'm not even sure this time last year that you even watched until it was brought up to you. Like, I'm not sure if you would have watched that on your own. So I think that's also like big steps for you. So I need to meet this Lauren, who's making such a great impact on your life.
These all feel like very much backhanded compliments.
I think it's growth. I think that's what it comes down to.
Sure. Okay. What the fuck have you been up to? As if I give a shit now.
I went to Newport. I think you would love that.
Oh, I do like that. Nice. Did you go out late night for the?
No. My buddy, he's got Irish twins at home that are like a year and not a year. So whatever they're 13 months apart or whatever they are. So he went out for a little late lunch, early dinner sort of thing. I hadn't seen him since high school. He just moved back from Hawaii, actually. So it was nice to catch up with him. And then a little college basketball. Lost some money on some bets.
Oh my god, my bracket is busted like everybody else. Speaking of brackets,
shared universe.
Everybody else's brackets in the DSG continue forward, and hashtag Dork as well as Mac and Goo talk Zack Snyder's Justice League just like we did. PCP, whose audio is already out, they're usually a day after everybody else. They did Happy Songs this week. TLDR, I'm Talking Invincible. That animated show on Prime starts later on in the week. I believe it's Friday, which is, well, nothing you can do about that, I guess, with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Caps Booze airs on Friday. You guys usually start around what, midday-ish, right, with your stream?
Yeah, we try to do it in the mornings.
Okay, so, but the audio's up shortly after. That's episode 2. I've heard it both ways, doing season 2, episode 2 of Psych. And be sure you guys follow all the streamers, Shime, Doc, and Davey over on Twitch. Wes, do you know what we're doing next week?
I think we got a open date, a little bit of an open date here. So free play action here.
Okay, so then same bat time.
Same bat